Hello everybody, thank you so much for being here so promptly. We will need to make a start. I begin today by acknowledging the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nations, traditional custodians of the land on which we gather and meet today, and pay my respects to the elders past and present. I extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today. Hello everybody, my name is Lindley Williams. I'm President of the Association of Music Educators, better known as AMusE. And on behalf of the AMusE Committee of Management and our Executive Officer, Kevin Kelly, we want to very warmly welcome you to this, our very first in-person VCE Teachers Gathering since Sunday, the 23rd of February 2020 at the Melbourne University Conservatorium of Music 2.5 years ago. Yeah. We just got that one in. We're very excited about the session presenters that you will hear today, as well as the moderators who will guide the proceedings of each session. We're also very, very grateful for the presence and expertise of our VCAA curriculum manager, Margaret Arnold. Before we start, very early in our discussions about today, many months ago, Richard Squibb, Director of Music of Presbyterian Ladies College, very, very kindly and generously offered us these incredible and magnificent facilities. And Richard, wherever you are, we're very grateful for that, and we can't thank you enough, so please can you thank him? Richard, would you like to come and say a few words?
Just very quickly, good morning, welcome to you all. I hope you have a great day. PLC is really pleased to be able to support this event and AMusE in making this happen. Just a couple of really quick housekeeping things from me. If you're wanting the bathrooms, they will be in the foyer, sort of directly in that direction, over in the foyer. There are also some bathrooms just on this side here. There are also a couple of bathrooms on level 1, so if you're in rehearsal room 1 or 2 for the sessions later on, there are some bathrooms there. In the unlikely event of any incident that means that we may have to evacuate the building, we would all head up to the car park where you all parked this morning. That will be our assembly area, but that won't happen, so I'm sure it'll be fabulous. It is great to be able to be here meeting in person, and we are really pleased, as I said, to support this event, and just hope you have a great day. And if there are any problems, there are a number of PLC staff here wearing little blue badges. If you're lost or you want to find out any information, just find me or a number of the PLC staff here, and hopefully we can help you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Richard. And now I'd like to introduce Roland Jung, who will be the moderator for the next 2 hours. He will talk about our presenters. Hopefully most of you know who he is. If you're under 40, you might want to do a Google search. Kevin and I call Roland the king of VCE. He has done this sort of day many times before, and we're very grateful for your expertise. Roland is quite amazing in his continued support and love towards us, particularly at AMusE, and we're delighted that he can join us today. So please, can you put your hands together to welcome Roland to the stage?
My welcome to you all. It's great that you're here. So this plenary session has 4 speakers, and we'll have them all speak before questions. And at question time, there'll be 2 roving mics, so it's putting your hand up in the usual way, and someone will come to you with a microphone. If you would, make sure you ask a question that is actually relevant to most people in the room. That will be very helpful. Otherwise, you can direct the question more privately to any of the speakers. When you get up there, please say your name, and if you want to say what school you're at, that'd be good. But please identify the speaker you're addressing the question to. Okay? So, Margaret Arnold, Curriculum Manager of Music at the Victorian Curriculum Assessment Authority. Marg is the Curriculum Manager for Performing Arts at the Victorian Curriculum Assessment Authority. After 3.5 years, full-time and responsible for music, dance and drama, she has recently moved to half-time and is now working only with music in the Victorian curriculum F to 10 and VCE. Her appointment to the VCAA followed many years as Head of Music at Wesley College, Victorian College of the Arts, Secondary School, and where am I? I lost my spot. Oh yes, and MLC. She also has taught preschool and primary school music in Australia and in England. Marg was a pianist in her undergrad years at University of Melbourne, then completed postgraduate studies at the VCA and Monash University in voice. She performed as a soloist with many choirs and with Victoria Opera. She has especially enjoyed professional small ensemble work in London and Australia, and continues to perform with small medieval ensemble Accord and at occasional club and cabaret gigs. Please welcome Marg to the microphone.
Well, thank you so much, Roland, and it is just so exciting to be hearing the buzz out in the foyer and in here, to hear that sort of buzz of face-to-face, the excitement that collegiality can bring, that is really just something very special. And thank you to AMusE for this opportunity and to PLC for hosting this event. I'd also like to to acknowledge the traditional owners and pay my respects to the elders past and present. And I'm going to, let's see if this, VCE Music Study Design. I wonder if this is right, nope. This doesn't seem to be the right presentation here. I'm not sure somebody can help me with that. But I will, while we're waiting to see the start of mine, the VCAA, that one. Sorry, I'd like to, I guess, take us on a bit of a journey today. It's a let's see. It's the one 28, the first one. Oh no, that's not it. Sorry, it's got 28 in it. This one. Yep, probably. That's it? No, other one must be that other. Must have been that first one. No, that's not it. It looks. It's okay. That's it. Sorry. Thank you. Okay. So I think we're nearly there, and there we go. Thank you. Okay, so there's this little, this felt like a magical kind of music pathway, and it begins, this particular one, you know, this journey begins with Unit 1. Now, I know, we all know that the journey probably should begin in preschool or with babies, but we're doing today, we're looking at VCE, and I would like to say that at the moment the annual survey of F to 10 is available, and I think the link will be in Music Mail in the next couple of days, but your schools would have that too, and you could make comments about the F to 10 program, which of course has some bearing on what we have in the senior years. But we want to think about all of those students who start that journey at Unit 1. They've come from so many different places. If you think about your own personal music journey as well, you've had, you may have had it in your family, may have been a chance thing along the way. I know when I first started my very first school here at PLC, they used to have a string program. This goes back to when the old music school was about 6 months old, so this is like a nice coming home, big full circle for me. But the junior school had a string program, and the headmistress used to go into the classrooms and say, stand up if your mother has a station wagon. And those girls got to play the cello. So that was kind of, we all start our musical journeys in different ways. And, but some of our students at Unit 1, when they enter Unit 1, will have had all of those years of something, and others will have had very little. And I'd like to think that the pathway does operate for all of those students. And I hope that you'll, you might be a dabbler in the studio, play a few guitar chords, or you might be somebody who's been, very focused for the entire time. You might also be somebody who's very focused, but likes to play in the netball team and act in the school play and do all the other things, and not necessarily have the time available for a specialist performance kind of opportunity, but still wants to be engaged. So there's very many students out there that we haven't been really looking after. So I know that you're tired and busy and time poor and under pressure from parents and students and schools to produce great exams, results, and even better whiz-bang concerts. But here you are today, and I thank you for taking the time, because you want to do the best for your students as the music studies change, perhaps more substantially than they have for quite a few years. But wait a bit, VCE hasn't changed. And I'd like to give you a quick refresher. My colleagues, the curriculum managers in the VCAA, we've got 23 new studies being implemented in 2023. That's a huge number of new studies across the spectrum of all of our learning areas. And I think we have all got the impression that a refresher of the actual what VCE entails just needs to be there for, it's a timely opportunity to show you what kind of agency you have as teachers. The whispering game, when somebody tells you something and it's passed from one person to the next, it kind of ends up being a long way from the original. And I think maybe we've come to that sort of, we've been whispering for a while, and new people have come into the noble profession of being a music teacher in a school, and somebody's told them something, and it goes on that way. And with every goodwill there, I'm going to go through quickly. This is the study design that we're talking about, the music study design 2023 to 27. It's on the website. Hopefully you've all got it. It is a legal document. It's regularly reviewed, and it's been through that consultation period, and the panels responded to that, writers have responded to that. It's been through the VCAA committees and the board, and it's been to the VRQA to be approved, and it's been published. So here it's with us now, so we can't really sort of enter into conversations about what's in or not, but the study design is setting the student outcomes, the assessment requirements, what students need to be able to know and do. And the VCAA also sets out the assessment types. Some are school-based and some are external. And that's what the VCAA expect. You can obviously expand on what's in the study design according to your particular student, but you can't set an assessment task on more than is and report it to the VCAA on more than is actually mandated in the study design. But you can certainly, as a teacher, be responsive to the needs of your students who are, excelling perhaps in, we're thinking about, Unit 1. You've got such a variety there. It doesn't limit you to what's on the page, but it's just that when you're formally assessing and saying that something's satisfactory, you need to think about what's actually in the study design. So the VCAA sets the curriculum and the assessment, but the teacher and the school determine how to teach so that students can reach those outcomes. So you're responsible for the pedagogy. You're the teacher, you know your students and their environment, and you're the one who can best decide how to ensure that the students encounter the key knowledge and the key skills so that they can satisfy the outcome requirements. You've got lots of opportunities to exercise your creativity and your skills as a teacher. So the study design itself is important to understand how it works, because I think this really determines how you're going to go about planning your work. There is the scope, the rationales, the aims, and the cross-study specifications. You should read them just to see where the whole package is aimed. And the cross-study specifications are important for every one of the four studies that are in the that are contained in the study design. That's important reading. It's that's where you get some of the information. That's where you see how things are defined. For instance, how subject-specific words are defined, that sort of thing. So in each study, we've got units. So in music, we've just got a common unit 1 and 2, but it branches out into 4 different unit 3, 4 studies. Within each unit, there are areas of study. And in music, we've got the ones that are to do with music making. We've got the performing, we've got the creating, and then we've got the analysing and responding aspects. So they're the sorts of areas that are covered in the areas of study. And each area of study contains key knowledge and key skills. Now, that's important reading. They're the dot points that you need to read, because they're the things that show you that a student has reached the outcome. So you can't really set a good piece of school-assessed coursework unless you've actually read those dot points, because your school-assessed coursework should be testing that key knowledge, the key skills for that outcome. And those outcomes are tested or examined in various ways. It might be an S&N, as in that's all the VCAA require for your Unit 1 and 2 studies, but it might be a SAC mark for Units 3 and 4, or the examinations also test outcomes. So if you're wondering what's going to be on an examination, you look at the outcomes, at the outcome statement. Which outcome is it testing? Have a look at the key knowledge and the key skills. And that's how you know what's going to be on the exam. So to complete satisfactorily your unit, you have to complete all your outcomes to a satisfactory standard. But that's not the same as examining every outcome or assessing every outcome. So that's a slightly different, so you can complete a unit by satisfactorily reaching the outcomes, but that might not be just on one occasion. That doesn't mean that you fail somebody in an outcome because they didn't get the SAC right. It means that you need to give them multiple opportunities to demonstrate over time to satisfactorily complete the outcome. It's a different thing than an assessed task. So we have school-based assessment, and each VCE unit result has to be determined on the basis of evidence that's completed during the academic year in which the student is enrolled. So I know VCAA knows that some schools, quite a lot of schools now, start Unit 3, after the exams in November, December. But you can certainly do preparation at that time, but you can't include a formally assessed task work there. It needs to be in the year that the student has been working. Now, all school-based assessment has to adhere to the assessment principles, and these are what guide you in your design and implementation of your school-assessed coursework. How do you decide what to do it? You need to ask this question about every piece of assessment in the VCE. Is it valid and reasonable? Is it equitable? Is it balanced? Is it efficient? So, schools and teachers create assessment practices that enable students to demonstrate that knowledge and understanding of the outcome statements, the key knowledge, the key skills. That's where you need to read the study design and go back to the outcome statement and go, okay, this is what students need to know, and this is what I can test them on. You don't have to actually test for a SAC on every single dot point either, but you should represent overall those dot points and not focus on one particular one. So the range of opportunities in different contexts should be balanced. And the work should be balanced across the different outcomes. It shouldn't advantage or disadvantage certain groups of students on the basis of circumstances and contexts. So it should be equitable. So that's why we should be setting the same task for everybody. And that includes everybody in a partnership really too. Should be undergoing the same sort of conditions. How long is it? The students need to know that beforehand. These are the sort of questions, if you're audited, and it sounds like a big scary thing, but it shouldn't be, because it's the school that's being audited, not the teacher. But as a teacher, you need to know that your school is responsible for some of this work, and often music teachers are a little bit out on the side because a lot of VCE coordinators don't really understand the practical implications of some of the work that you do, but it's good to keep them informed so that they do understand the particular needs. But it is important that you try to think about those assessment principles in what you do. You'll be asked, and in any new study, there's a very high percentage of schools schools that are offering the study are audited in the first and second years of that study. So most of you, if you're teaching the new ones, will have that audit at some point in the next 2 years. So these are good things to be thinking about as you make those preparations. Then it won't come as a surprise. You'll know that you've got all those things ticked off. The support materials that come out, but advice for teachers, that sort of thing. It's not called that anymore, it's called study support materials, and it's with all of these new studies that are coming online. There's, as you can imagine, probably a lot in the queue. The music things are in that publication queue at the moment, and I would think that some of them are going to be out there within the next couple of weeks. But the performance descriptors won't necessarily be out there yet, and I'll talk about those in a minute. But in your school assessed coursework, you should be developing and designing assessment practices that best fit your context, your cohort of students, and your school community. So that's why it's not a good idea to just take something straight from a textbook or from another teacher, because in your school assessed coursework, this is the opportunity for you to be able to rank your students in a fair order within that class. And this is a different thing from deciding what mark they're going to get at the end of the year. What you're doing is kind of giving every student in your cohort, whether it's one class or across a partnership or whatever, or a large school with a couple of classes, the task needs to be difficult enough for the top students to be able to show just how high they can go. So it needs to separate them out. For the best opportunities for your students, it's better not to have them bunched on the top. You need to set the task so that the highest flyer can fly the highest in that task. But you also need to set things that are entry level for your less able students, because the assessment is providing the opportunity for you to get to see how students are going, for them to see how they're going, but the school assessed coursework ranking is then moderated against exams and GAT and so on. And that will help you in the long run. So support materials for assessment provide advice and examples only. And the VCAA doesn't say that any particular assessment theory or practice is better than another. Schools develop and design their assessment practices that best fit their context, their cohort, and their community, as I said before. So it's important, that's a kind of important message. It means that apart from the VCAA does set the task type, but you don't have to make that a mirror of what happens in an exam, for instance. If you want to see what your students are doing and how well they're going, it doesn't need to look like an exam. You can do practice exams all you want, but your school assessed coursework where you're marking, as long as the students know what the expectation is, you can have that choice to do things. The support material, as I say, isn't published. The performance descriptors won't be published until probably December or January, but that doesn't stop you from starting to design SACs now, because you can develop your own performance descriptors as well, or you can adapt from the VCAA ones. You don't need to wait for those descriptors to start thinking about the task that you might set. And if you're in a partnership, you could be using the same sort of assessment practices so that you can fairly rank that cohort. So, you have a lot of agency here. You can adjust things, you can reform, grow, adapt, change, evolve, basically improve. So it's an opportunity, and I think this is a message that all of us curriculum managers are trying to get out there to people who are embarking on new studies, that this is an opportunity to review what you've been doing, you might be able to adapt or adjust some things, but don't just sort of try and shoehorn the old one into the new one. Have a look at the processes, and I think you might find that you'll be surprised at how much you can do there. You will, if you have a combined class, I've been asked this question a few times, and I know it's difficult, but I know that a lot of people are thinking about having a combined contemporary and repertoire class, for instance. They are separate sub-studies, so they do need separate cohorts of students. So you might have a class of 7 students, but 4 of them are in contemporary and 3 of them are in repertoire. You will need a partnership for each of those, I'm sorry to say, but equally, there's probably another school out there who's got the same kind of issue, and it's great to see that the speed dating that's been set up today that might help you identify some of these things early and maybe get together with somebody else and organise these things. It shouldn't be that much of a difficulty if you can do that and support each other in developing the tasks as well. So really happy that that's, do take advantage of that if you can, or, start being proactive. There's information in the administrative handbook. I find myself often having to refer teachers to the administrative handbook, by the way, about a lot of things. If you're asking about unscored VCE and how you assess that, or all sorts of questions, procedural type of questions, or what to do if a student's away for a SAC and that sort of thing, your school will have, or should have, regulations. You should be able to be following those where there are those sorts of things, but you might want to have a look at the administrative handbook. The 2022 one's up there at the moment, obviously, and that gives you some ideas about. It gives you the sort of the rulings. They're not things that are made by the curriculum people. That's student records and results. Write those sorts of that sort of advice. But I often find myself referring to those. So getting to how you could go about doing some of this stuff now before material is published, the tasks and the task types, and you can't, I don't expect you to be able to read that. I can't read what's on my little screen here. But that's the Unit 3 repertoire, outcome and tasks for Unit 3. And it shows you the breakdown. It says on the left, what is the outcome statement? And on the right, the kind of assessment that should be. If you've got a combined class, I'd be looking at Unit 3 repertoire and Unit 3 contemporary and working out, okay, there are some differences in what the assessment needs to be, but they're going to be in a very similar format. They will be different, but they will be in a similar format, and a lot of the preparatory work can be done together, providing students know what their tasks are eventually. And we've already spoken about the fact that those tasks need to be able to separate out those top students, so hard enough for the top ones to be able to show how high they go, but not easy enough for everybody to get full marks, even though you want them to, because we're teachers and we want our students to be successful, but the way that VCE works is in a ranking system. So, for instance, in repertoire, if you look at outcome 2 side by side, in repertoire they demonstrate and discuss techniques related to performance of selected works, including aspects of interpretation. Okay, and it's a discussion is mandated in which materials designed to assist in the recreation of notated recital works, including both technical and expressive aspects, are explained and demonstrated. Now, there's 30 marks out there. Now you need to work out how you break down those 30 marks, and the materials that you're working with, how are students are they just going to produce these on the spot? Or are you going to maybe use a diary or whatever to progressively work on those things and then get them to explain and demonstrate? There's a lot of ways that you could go about that particular assessment task. In contemporary, demonstrate and discuss performance development techniques and approaches relevant to performance of selected works and an intended approach to a reimagined existing work. And that has been broken down into a 20 and a 10. So a 20 is the demonstration of the intended approach to reimagining. It's a demonstration. The 10 is the discussion about the techniques and personal voice. The task type will be similar for the two cohorts, but it will be different in its essence, and they do need to be different. They need to be in separate cohorts when you rank them. So that's just one thing that I wanted to make sure, even though a lot of your classwork together will contribute to that. They'll be performing together, they'll be discussing their issues in front of each other, they'll be, that sort of thing is absolutely part of classwork that they can be sharing. External assessment, the performance examinations, written examinations, externally assessed tasks. Well, they're all those external things that have assessment criteria. And the assessment criteria are published. They're not published yet, and they won't be published until after the exam period of 2022. That's a policy issue from the VCAA. They don't want anybody getting confused on anything to do with assessment whatsoever, and they really hold that off until after all of the assessment has been over. So December, January, I'd be expecting that things to do with the external assessment criteria and also the sample exams would be not coming out until, December, January to be published. But that doesn't mean that you can't start preparing, because all assessment criteria are derived from the key knowledge and the key skills of the outcome being assessed. So there should be no surprises for you. If you've had a good look at the key knowledge and key skills and the outcome, you know what you're preparing students to be able to do and to demonstrate. So there shouldn't be anything that you find in the assessment criteria that are going to be a surprise, really. So that means that you can be planning quite a lot now for external assessment as well as your internal work. So it is possible. It's not, you don't have to wait till those things are published before you start thinking about it, because they all come directly from key knowledge and key skills. So I mentioned before the ranking and statistical moderation. The pages in the more general part of the VCAA's website has some good instructional material for teachers and students about what statistical moderation is and about what a study score is, how the study score is arrived at. And those things are done by the VCAA. But the other frequently asked question is, will the marks in all these studies go up or down? And that is entirely outside of the VCAA's remit. It's the ATAR is calculated by VTAC, and it's solely for the use of tertiary institutions to compare the overall achievement of students who've completed different combinations of VCE studies. And that's the key, because in any year that it's determined on who out of this cohort, what other studies did they do, and overall how well did they do. It's not to do with the particular study. That's why you often get studies that that will remain like going up or going down just because of the cohort of students that do them. But quite a few of the performance studies particularly can be quite different, because we do have a range of students selecting to do those courses, so it's really hard to predict. So you need to look at, I can't give you any advice on that, I'm not allowed to, I'm not qualified to, but what I would do is to refer you to the VTAC and site, and also to their, to their scaling guide and how that's calculated. And that's possibly where you need to refer students or parents who are being difficult about that, because it's nothing to do with the VCE study. It's the combination of studies that any particular, that are undertaken by a particular group of students. So, the other thing to also think about, that I've been asked a few questions about how many of these new studies will be allowed in the top group of studies. That information is now updated for next year on the VTAC site as well. So you can see, I don't think there's anything that's a major change from current practice as to the number of study groupings that are allowed in those when they undertake those, but they are on the VTAC website now. Can I say a few words, more than a few words? The VCE instrumental teacher or voice teacher, that's the one who's traditionally been the one who prepares that recital program. They're so important. And I think, it's great that we've got, I know that some are here today, that's great. And I know that I've spoken to ANATS, the singing teachers people, a couple of times this year already, and certainly prepared to speak to other instrumental based groups, because I think there's quite a lot of teachers out there who perhaps, if they're not actually working in a school and they just have the odd student who's doing things, they really don't understand that process. And it would be great to be able to get them to understand a little bit more about VCE as a whole and how they can contribute, and this is in your interests as classroom teachers, how they can contribute to that overall growth of the student. The VCE instrumental teacher is guiding, instructor, dare I say, they're guiding students, helping them to navigate the technique to become technically proficient. Now, those you might see from the study design, and that, you know, there's no vocalese, for instance, on the required in the VCE voice things. It doesn't say you're going to have to do a vocalese, or it doesn't say you're going to have to do a study. It doesn't say scales and exercises. You know, back in my day, we had to do our scales and exercises in our VCE, in our HSC exam. But it doesn't mean that as an instrumental teacher you don't teach those things. It just means that we're not assessing them, because all of those things that go to developing the ability to be able to convey the performance, all those skills need to be taught somehow. That's their that's the instrumental teacher's pedagogy, how they're going to work to enable students to do that. It's not by just teaching the piece. It's like, I don't know, getting back to think about what you did and what other people did as, you know, I certainly started learning piano when I was 7, and then I did a grade every year, and I learned the list. You know, by the time I was doing grade 5, I think I had a list A and a list B and a list C and a list D, and maybe a couple of other pieces for the extra list, and the set of scales I had to do. Okay, do that, have an exam, get it ticked off, then go up to the next grade. That was kind of what it was sort of, and I feel like we just need to think a bit broader. And I know that when I went to university and I discovered all these people who were way better at their instruments than I was, that they were doing all this other stuff. And, you know, the instrumental teacher can give you so many things, so many opportunities. And I would hate to think that by reading a VCE study, they've kind of gone, no, oh, I can't, you know, that's not required, I can't teach that. But they can. It's part of the, and it's also, when you look at your what you might teach in the classroom, it's not just what's on the page, it's how you arrive there. So it's not like a tick-off list, it's the part that you engage with as a teacher, to go, oh gosh, if they're going to do that, that probably means they need to experience this. And so it's much, much broader than just ticking off. Those outcomes, those key knowledge, those key skills, they're the things that you're going, yeah, that's the aim. But there's quite a few different ways to get there. But, and as I say, instrumental teachers have got a lot of scope to be assisting with outcome 2 as well, in those performance studies, for instance, the analysis of works, of understanding what it is that you're playing, and analysing for performing, you know, you're understanding where those bits are, what are they called, this terminology that's also relevant when you get to outcome 3, listening to different performances of the same piece by different people, having the language to describe what's different from one from another. That's part of the outcome 3 work as well. If the instrumental teacher can help there, they're helping you a huge amount. So, and then when they do prepare, when instrumental teachers are preparing work for examination, for the actual performance examination, then they base it on the assessment criteria. So I'm very happy to be speaking more. I'd love to have access to more of the instrumental teachers, or provide them with more information as well through subject, you know, through the instrumental groupings sort of people. But I think as teachers in schools, it would be great if you could take your instrumental teachers on board and try and give them some information too. The VCE class teacher is usually performing that sort of coordination role of all the students and their programs and that sort of thing. But as I say, it's a great opportunity to be getting your instrumental teachers to be helping considerably, introduce them to the way that you're doing the record keeping, help them if there's a sort of a diary or a practice, I don't know, a thing that you're keeping that's keeping a record of what they're doing. That's something that instrumental teachers could engage with as well. We're, starting to expect people to do more online too. It could be, that sort of thing. Help getting, in music inquiry and music composition, that classroom teacher is going to have that important task of preparing the EAT materials, the externally assessed task materials, into their correct formats and uploading them for external assessment. And that will be an important task, an important sort of record-keeping task as well. And I know that those who do large numbers of composition EATs already understand what a task that can be. And, we're certainly trying to streamline that from the VCAA's end so that that's nice and smooth for teachers. But you won't get information about that until that, what's required in that EAT or how it's going to be presented until a little bit later too. I'm sorry about that, but that's the way it works. So when we're thinking about a music student, just reminding from that journey, that music student, anything from a highly skilled performer to a fairly inexperienced guitarist who's learned a few things from YouTube, somebody who sings a bit or played the uke, and a few odd classroom percussions on the way. We've got all of those people. But performing is named first because we are about doing. We're about and creating. We're performing and creating. The music making part is the primary goal, and it's what really fun. That's the memorable bit for most students, and So that just remember that it's the doing that's really important. The new and the analysing and responding obviously contributes to the way that students understand, and it is important too, but we don't want students to feel that they're writing all the time, that they come to music class and they're doing things on paper. They're creating, they're performing. They might be listening with great intent, but they're not, generally speaking, writing heaps. There's a poster out there, and thanks to the teacher who said to me, "Is there a poster?" And it would have taken like a long time another way, but there is a poster, and I think that AMusE has it on the website. Thank you, Sue. And and it's just something that you could print off and put up for teachers and students to know. It shows the pathways from units 1 and 2. The units 1 and 2 leading to music, the sort of music making unit 3 and 4 called music inquiry, the 2 specialist performance studies and the specialist composition study. And I say specialist because in that specialty receives a 50% of the externally assessed task. So that's of external assessment on that specialty itself. And that's a big increase for composition, very exciting one that allows for composers to be specialists just as performers can be. So you can find a lot of information on the music study design on pages in music. The very first bit, when you go to the music study page, you can and towards the bottom of the page, if you're looking at a laptop screen, you might need to scroll down to see the bottom bits. There you can download the study design, and you can find links to the 9 now short on-demand videos that focus on specific aspects of the new studies. Most of the questions that I'm asked have the answers in there. Additional resources will be added to that. That's where you will get the study support materials will appear, and there'll be a great big new thing with buttons to press to go to different things. You'll find it'll be much easier to navigate. They're working on that right now, making and embedding that information. My email address, of course, for any studies, and is there more advice? That's all happening. Can I mention the ongoing opportunities to be involved in the study? Here you all are. If you want, there's nothing like being involved in assessment to be able to work out a bit more about your own teaching as well, and ongoing opportunities to be involved in the assessment and exam setting panels. You can't be on a setting panel if you're teaching the study at Unit 3-4 level, but you can certainly be assessing, and those opportunities will be advertised through the bulletin. And to apply for any of those, you have to be registered on the Sessional Staff Management System, or SSMS. So if you Google SSMS VCAA, you'll find it easily, and you can register yourself on there, and it gives that also that's where everything is advertised, all the appointment opportunities. So I'd encourage you to get involved in those things. So that's sort of summary. There's going to be some webinars in the next couple of weeks. There's one on the 5th of September, and there's one on the 12th, the 2 Monday afternoons. They're advertised. They were advertised in the a few weeks ago, and it'll be in notices to schools, I think, in this next week as well. But you can keep any questions that are unanswered after today that you think that I need to know about, please email me, but email me like tomorrow so that I can try and get them answered in the webinars, because those webinars will be going up on the VCAA website eventually. They have to be, captioned and all of those things that have to go to it. But dare to change. You're up for the journey. I know it feels fast and furious to me often, and I'm sure it does feel like a bit of a roller coaster for you too. But we're all after students enjoying their music, wanting to play, sing, create music, improve their skills so that they can do more. Some are going to pursue music beyond, into their tertiary studies, but most won't. But they can still play, and in small groups and large, and continue to play at uni and beyond, in community groups, garages, and, of course, with the next generation, they'll be singing the kind of songs I've been singing to my grandchildren over the last couple of days. Perpetuating that. I went to see Il Mago di Oz last night with the grandchildren, and Victorian Opera at the Palais. It's on Tuesday night again. But some wonderful youth chorus work, and younger people as well. So nice to see those people up there on the professional stage doing such a terrific job, and just looking around at the young artists who were involved in it, the musicians in the orchestra, and thinking how many of those have come through our education systems, and how we can make it better for loads and loads more people. So thank you for your work. I think you've got an exciting day ahead of you, and I'm kind of excited to see what teachers are going to be bringing to all of this. I'll be learning new things too, and I just thank you all for nurturing our young people. Thank you.